Okay, let's dive into this explanator and explore a really fascinating alternative lens for looking at one of the world's greatest maritime mysteries. For decades, the Bermuda Triangle has literally captured our imaginations. We've all heard the tales of vanishing ships, downed planes, and compasses spinning wildly out of control. Now, we usually try to solve this using modern oceanography or meteorology, right? But what if we looked at it through a completely different ancient framework? Today, we're decoding the Bermuda Triangle using the incredibly structured system of Vedic astrology.
So why do instruments actually go crazy in the Bermuda Triangle? Well, rather than looking at anomalous magnetic fields through the lens of Western science, we're going to systematically unpack how ancient Vedic astrology explains these exact same spinning compasses and disappearing ships. It turns out, this ancient Eastern science has a surprisingly precise vocabulary for the very anomalies that baffle modern navigators today.
To really understand this framework, we're going to build our explanation layer by layer. We'll start with the astral coordinates, move on to the domain of the grahas, explore the 3 key constellations, map out the karmic configuration, and finally, look at the anatomy of a disappearance.
All right, starting with part 1, the astral coordinates of the triangle. Let's see how the physical geography aligns with these esoteric forces.
So the triangle sits right between 25 and 32 degrees north latitude and 64 to 80 degrees west longitude. It's essentially anchored by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Now, according to the Vedic framework, this specific slice of the globe falls into a highly volatile quadrant governed by Agni, which translates to a subtle, transformative fire. So right off the bat, we're looking at a zone that is inherently prone to energetic anomalies. And this brilliantly illustrates the core problem. Think of it like a dangerous elemental cocktail. When you mix the inherently unstable water energy of the tropics, which is governed by the moon, or Karka, with the subtle fire of Agni, and then throw in the karmic air of Vayu and Rahu, well, you get a highly volatile recipe. It's a mix that practically guarantees unpredictable vortices, sudden atmospheric shifts, and severe sensory distortions.
Moving on to part 2, the domain of the grahas. Let's meet the cosmic characters that actually rule this space.
Now, in Vedic astrology, a graha isn't just a physical rock floating in space, it's a cosmic influencer. It karmically affects the energetic conditions right here on Earth. And in this system, the Bermuda Triangle is heavily dominated by specific grahas, most notably the karmic lunar nodes known as Rahu and Ketu. Together, these two forces create severe energetic voids where human perception and our mechanical instruments just simply begin to fail.
What's really fascinating here is how perfectly the esoteric translates to the tangible. Look at how each cosmic influencer maps directly to a famous Bermuda Triangle trope. Rahu governs illusions, which perfectly causes those infamous spinning compasses. Ketu rules nonlinear phenomena, creating sudden signal blackouts. The moon amplifies those warm tropical waters into unpredictable rogue waves. And Mercury, the ruler of navigation and communication, well, it's considered debilitated in this specific zone. That directly explains the classic trope of radios dying and pilots making fatal routing errors. Make sense?
Zooming out a bit further, let's look at part 3, the 3 key constellations. If we look at the overarching star systems looming over this exact geography, the area is governed equally by 3 distinct constellations, or Nakshatras. The influence is split an even 33.3% across Adra, Punavasu, and Pushya. And what's absolutely vital to understand here is that each of these 3 star systems injects a very specific compounding type of chaos into the waters down below.
First up, we have Ardra, which is ruled by that chaotic node we talked about, Rahu. Ardra is quite literally the constellation of violent atmospheric phenomena and electrical chaos. So, you know those historical stories we hear of massive hurricanes forming in minutes rather than hours inside the triangle? The Vedic framework points directly to the destructive, sudden energy of Ardra to explain that phenomena.
Next is Punarvasu, which is ruled by Jupiter. Now, this is the constellation of cyclical returns and repeating patterns. So, the crucial takeaway here is that Punarvasu explains why disappearances in the triangle don't just happen at a random, constant rate. Instead, they tend to happen in distinct, repeating historical clusters. The energy essentially echoes over time.
Finally, we have Pushya, ruled by Saturn. Pushya represents dark depths, compressed energy, and impenetrable zones. This is the heavy energetic weight that creates areas of immense density. It elegantly explains why sunken ships or downed planes lose their power,
and are seemingly swallowed by the dark, deep trenches of the Atlantic, making them incredibly difficult, if not entirely impossible, to ever recover.
Okay, let's pull all these pieces together in Part 4, the Karmic configuration.
When you overlay all these elements on a map, you quickly realize this isn't just viewed as random bad luck. You actually get a perfect geometric intersection of karmic, lunar, and telluric lines. The line of Rahu causes extreme magnetic oscillations. The Ketu line creates atmospheric voids. The lunar line destabilizes marine currents. And the Agni line compresses the telluric energy from the Earth's tectonic faults. It's essentially a grid where time, human perception, and the physical environment are warping simultaneously.
The source text actually captures this beautifully with the phrase fire underwater. I just love this concept. It perfectly illustrates the friction of hot and cold ocean currents colliding right over tectonic faults, heavily influenced by the fire energy of Agni. It basically turns this specific patch of the Atlantic Ocean into a pressurized cooker of unpredictable anomalous events.
And finally, Part 5, Anatomy of a Disappearance. Let's look at exactly how a disappearance happens step by step under this model. By tracking this exact 5-step sequence, we can see how the Vedic framework provides a completely cohesive mechanical explanation for the total erasure of a vessel. First, Rahu initiates a magnetic void, spinning the compasses and forcing the navigator off route. Second, the amplified lunar energy generates a sudden vortex or rogue wave. Third, Ketu steps in with an energetic cut, entirely knocking out radios and electronics. Fourth, the constellation Ardra unleashes sudden, violent atmospheric destruction. And finally, the heavy energy of Pushya drags the wreckage down into the dark depths where signals simply cannot bounce back. It's a stunningly systematic breakdown of a tragedy. So what you should really take away from all this is a massive shift in perspective. You see, Western pop culture loves to treat the Bermuda Triangle like some mystical sci-fi portal to another dimension. But the Vedic interpretation? It doesn't view the triangle as magical at all. Instead, it defines it as a kshetra of Rahu, a highly volatile, perfectly natural interference zone. It's simply a place where cosmic and telluric energies overlap so intensely that human perception and our fragile navigational tools just cannot function.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If an ancient system of astrology can provide such a highly structured mechanical map for the anomalies of our most famous modern maritime mystery, what other unexplained geographic zones on Earth might just be misunderstood intersections of cosmic energy? It completely changes how we look at a map, for sure. Thanks for exploring this incredibly fascinating framework with me today.